Today on Never Legends podcast, I have McLean soccer coach Leland Jameson, who took the Highlanders all the way to the state final this year, losing on a brutal golden goal, but did a tremendous job in the second year at McLean High School. Coach, thanks for doing this, and congratulations on a great season.
Yeah, absolutely, Julian. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
It's
of
we've
course.
talked a few times on the side of games, and it's good to finally talk to you here on camera.
Oh yeah, well, thanks. It's always good to see you, Coach. You coach with a lot of passion. Your players play with a lot of passion, which is what high school is all about. Well, Coach, I know we've talked briefly that you trained with my son's former coach, Kev Fuller,
Yeah,
who
yeah, Kevin
who,
Fuller.
who used, did yoga here in Northern Virginia, and he runs kids to camps in Europe as well. I know you're familiar with Coach Kev.
Mhm.
Um, I know you also coach at Nova. You coach junior college, and I know, obviously I knew about McLean. What are some of your other coaching gigs? I know oftentimes coaches have quite a few gigs.
Well, right now, since this past season, Nova just ended their athletics program.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, they canceled the whole program, so I was looking for jobs for this fall, and I'm going to be accepting a job at Lackawanna Community College up in Pennsylvania.
Okay. What part of Pennsylvania is that?
This is Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Does that mean you got to move?
just for the fall.
Okay. So you're not going to give up your McLean job.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So if kids aren't signed for the fall,
Mhm.
or they're thinking ahead to the next year,
Yeah.
are you going to recruit kids down here as well?
Yeah, so because I'm taking this job late, the team still got a few openings, and I'd like to put this out to anybody that's watching this, anybody that played soccer in the Northern Virginia area. If you guys need a place to play in the fall, maybe you're going to Nova and you don't have a place to play, or you're going to another school and you still want to continue playing career and maybe try and play D1 somewhere, reach out to me and I'd love to give you an opportunity up at Lackawanna.
Okay, I'll leave your contact information. Is it doable to board up there, or
Yeah,
should these people have family up
the
there if they?
one the biggest difference between this program and Nova's program is that they have backing from their school. They have dorms, full facilities. They've got it's like a full 4 year school there.
So this is more of a traditional junior college that you'd see in the Midwest that play
Yeah,
sports. We don't really have a junior college tradition as much in this area as they do in some parts of the. So this is more of a traditional junior college type program.
exactly. The types you'll see where the big JUCO football schools. I think this school competed for a national title last year in football.
Okay.
So it's one of
How
those
did you
type
get that?
schools.
How'd you get that opportunity?
I'm just reaching out, cold calling, reaching out, calling anybody I could really.
And
Same way I got opportunities in soccer.
they lost their coach from last year, or
Yeah, he left. I'm not sure what terms he left on, but he left
okay.
after last season.
So what is it about coaching junior college that you like so much?
I like the competition, the competitive level, the investment from the kids. A lot of the kids at the JUCO level see it as their last shot to really play competitive soccer and have a chance at the next level. So those kids are willing to really fight on the field, really kill and die for what they want to get. And that's where I want to be right now. Those are the kind of kids that full investment that I want to be coaching right now.
So you prefer to coach JUCO than coach like a high level club team?
I think right now, from what I've seen in the club scene, I there's more passion in the high school game and the JUCO game, where the games mean a bit more. The each game is a bit heavier in terms of importance. So
Right.
I really like that passion. It's similar to the pro game where guys are willing to die for every game.
Yeah. And tactically, is it most similar to high school? Is it more similar to college, or how would you compare how the game works tactically?
The JUCO game's very interesting. You get a little bit of everything. So some of the schools we played against with Nova had 15 international players. One school, CCBC Essex up in Maryland, they had 8 players from Japan alone, and these were all top level players. So they played a very high level brand of soccer. They were organized, they played well, everything was coordinated, timed well,
Hmm.
and we're competing with guys that are all local. Our Nova team is basically all local guys, so it was a very interesting challenge, and we took down some big teams in our time there.
Hmm. Coach, you're part Japanese, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm half Japanese.
Okay, so did you grow up there, or you grew up here?
I was born here, but I grew up. Every summer we'd go back to Japan for 3 months and basically spend the entire summer there. I played soccer there growing up, and
Hmm.
a lot of my technical base came from the time I spent in Japan.
Well, the Japanese players that we know from that make it to the Premier League
Mhm.
tend to be very technical players. Um, is the game much different? Do you see the game being much different in Japan than it is in America?
Yeah, well, when I was there as a kid, the big emphasis was on technique, and that's what I took away. And then when I went back to play there professionally as an adult, the biggest difference I noticed was tactically how they thought about the game. A lot of what they talk about is while you're doing what you're doing, watching the opponent's reactions, watching how they're reacting to what you're doing, and eventually using those reactions against them, playing to where the opponent is uncomfortable.
Yeah, so the Japanese were like the Americans, were very early in women's soccer. They they had a coach in the national team. I forgot who it was, but they had their own style of playing. I guess it's most similar to Spain, but I don't think it was derivative of Spain. I think it's something they came up with on their own. And the Japanese women were always very advanced. Did you see elements of that when you were in Japan?
Oh, 100%. I think the Japanese game has been on the rise for a while. And it's interesting because back in the year 2002, when they hosted the World Cup, they started something called the 50-year plan, where they developed a 50-year plan to try and win the World Cup. And it started with developing domestic leagues and creating a professional pyramid. Now they have 3 fully pro leagues. The third division there has full stadiums. The fourth division has near the same, not as big stadiums, but they're packing out every game. And I think this Olympics too. Watch the Japanese team this Olympics, the U23 team. I think they're gonna make some noise.
Yeah, I don't think when Japan plays well, it surprises people that much though, because I think Japan has had moments of greatness often. I guess South Korea has as well, a neighbor of yours. And so, and there's so many elite players from both those countries. I think South Korea may have even more than Japan. But I know Japan had that great midfielder who played in CSK Moscow. What was his name? AC Milan.
Honda.
Yeah, he was a tremendous player. So I don't think those countries can surprise us too much because I think people realize there's a lot of quality there. Who are your first heroes as a player?
My first heroes as a player, I loved. I was an AC Milan fan growing up, watching the early 2000s teams through the mid 2000s. Some Maldini, Nesta, Pirlo, those guys I'd love to watch.
Yeah. When the first time you noticed a coach, and when was the first time a coach got your eye as being influential to you?
Personally, a coach personally to me.
Yeah, it could be on TV or a coach that you had, either one.
Yeah.
A coach that was
I'd
influential.
say I've got to give this guy a shout out because he was probably the biggest influence on my life at the time. When I was 15, I had a coach named Bobby Humphrey. I don't know if many people still remember him. He's not around the area anymore, but he was an amazing mentor for me. He taught me what it took to get to the pro game. He let me train with pro players. I got to see how hard he worked, how hard they worked, and that was definitely the biggest influence on me, Bobby Humphrey.
What kind of player were you? What position did you play, and what level did you rise to?
I played center back, center mid, and fullback.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, more center mid, more fullback. But as I went up, I played high school here at Oakton. I went to play in JUCO at Nova. After that, I played in Holland, which was an opportunity that was created for me by Kefren Fuller. Mm-hmm. So he got me over to Holland. That was my first experience in that environment. And then after that, I went and played in Japan for 2 years after that.
What did you learn from Kef?
From Kef, mentality, technique, definitely tactical side as well. But I'd say from Kefren, when I got to Holland, I didn't really understand what it took, what the competitive environment was like, how hard you had to compete daily, not just during the games, but in practice. Practices were like games. And he really helped open my eyes to that.
Yeah. My son wasn't the best athlete in the world. He was a midfielder at Yorktown the year before you got there, but he was very unique and the way he thought the game out. And it was because he played for Kef for so many years. And I don't think anyone ever really anyone ever connected those dots of why he was so different than a lot of the kids. Most of the kids he played with Arlington travel kids or McLean travel kids, and they basically are athletic kids that are very technical and they play alike. Jeff Channel was very unique and he stood out. Yeah. Because of all the time he has been with Kef.
That's another thing I'll say about Kef is he taught me that the smaller players, the more technical ones, sometimes those are the guys that you go with to give those guys the opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. My son is a lot like Luke Hamill. He doesn't have Luke's skill on the ball. He moves the ball much faster than Luke. He was a one-touch player, but
Luke's a special player, man. His mentality too. Up
Yeah.
here, you see the skill, but up here he's different. He's
Yeah.
been starting since he's a freshman and never shown any fear on the field.
Yeah. He's just an amazing competitor, confident kid. And he's just only going to get better because even though I agree with Kev that you don't need to be a great athlete, you can tell he's just grown into his body. And even as a freshman,
Mhm.
he's this little kid going against this big strapping Herndon team. And he's more than holding his own. So when you first decided, was McLean your first high school job, coach?
Yeah, McLean is my first high school job.
What do you, so you didn't probably know much about high school soccer except for the high school soccer that you played yourself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you took the job, uh, I know there was some turmoil over at McLean. They have a lot of great players, but I know there was some. I don't know what exactly was going on, but there was a little bit of drama over there. Coach quit right after the season, even though they'd gotten to the state semifinals, I believe. What were your expectations when you took the job? What were you expecting over there?
Well, I knew they'd gotten to the state semifinal, and in the first interview I did with McLean, Caffrey Eaton was present in the interview. He was part of it. I got to speak to him, if I remember correctly, and Aram. You remember Aram
Of
Najarian from
course,
the year
yeah.
before? Yeah. So if I remember correctly, about half that interview just ended up being a conversation between Caff, Aram, and I. And I knew leaving that interview, that's where I wanted to go. Regardless of anything else, I knew they had the kids in the interview, the school was behind it. That's where I wanted to go. And they had all the tools to be successful, right? Having gone to the state semifinals the year before. So it just felt like the perfect thing. And the expectation for me is always to win every game that we play in. So
Yeah, Catherine and Rom are two of my favorites. So McLean kids have a reputation around the area as being, rich kids. I was talking to the baseball coach last week, and he was actually been surprised at the work ethic of the kids because,
yeah, yeah.
you grow up around here, we kind of laugh at McLean kids in a respectful way, but
Mhm.
they're going to be our bosses one day. Were you surprised at the McLean kids when you started working with them?
I don't know about surprise, but that's definitely something I want to highlight is these kids nowadays are tough. Like I've heard people talking down on players like this generation soft and all that. I don't believe in that one bit. The kids over at McLean, they push through anything. I've got kids playing with sprained Achilles, torn labrums, and 3 or 4 players in that state final have been dealing with injuries all through playoffs and playing through it. So I don't think there's any doubt on how tough or how hard these kids work.
Yeah. Do you find the kids very respectful, easy to coach? Do you find and also the parents, are the parents um, reasonable to deal with?
Yeah, yeah. So far, it's really been all love at McLean between me, the players, and parents.
Well, it's usually as long as you win, coach, uh, people tend to love you. Did it ever occur to you that you've coached more talent in a high school team than some coaches ever see in high school? I mean, you have at least two Division I players in Joe and what's my man Gage, two Division I players, but so many kids that could play in college. I know that.
Yeah,
What was the
we're
kid?
working on a few others.
Yeah, what was the little kid last year played right back for you? He was playing up in Pennsylvania.
Jeremy.
There's Jeremy was a
Oh,
really good player.
you're thinking of Jalen?
Yeah, Jalen. I mean, you probably have. I mean, if Dante wanted to play Division I think he's a Division I fullback. You
Yeah,
have so much talent. Does it dawn on you that it's you're coaching at a school that has so much great talent to work with?
yeah. I mean, I don't think of it really in that kind of detached terms. I really just look at the kid and what I've got in front of me. I mean, the year before we graduated, I think we only brought back four returning players, 4 returning starters last year. This year we've got 8 returning starters coming back. So
You're talking about the year going into this year. You only had four
yeah,
starters. Okay,
4 returning starters.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this year,
I'm going to count Dante as a return starter.
that's true. He was a wild card that we got. He was a bit of a joker in the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's honestly for me, it's fun coaching these kids, this kind of talents, and I just want to see them be the best player that they can be. So, however good they are when they come, I just try to push them to be better.
Right. So when you coach, you've coached club soccer before, is that correct?
I've dabbled in club
Yeah.
soccer, not really.
So when you think of coaching high school soccer, what do you think your task is? What is your role as a high school soccer coach with a compressed season and kids that are sometimes conflicted between club soccer and other commitments?
Yeah. The number one, the first thing is to develop that sense of team, develop that culture, that family environment, right? Everyone working hard together, pushing each other to be their very best, and in the sense that competitive brothers would. That's how I like practices to be. And then once you get that going, you develop the defensive side. The build up takes a little bit longer to develop, but you get that going as well. And yeah, what was the rest of that question?
No, just what you think your role is. It's a compressed season, and you have kids that are conflicted with other commitments like club, also graduation and prom, and this is a really busy time of the year for the kids.
Yeah, I want to develop the kids as much as possible, train with them as much as possible, work as hard as possible. But like you're saying, with the club commitments, some players I'll give certain breaks to, other players I'm very understanding in the sense of if they've got practices going on, they're dealing with injuries. If somebody played 3 games on the weekend, I don't need them to train on Monday, right? I know they're going to be ready to go on Tuesday.
Well, Coach, what is it about the coaches in the Liberty that there's always so much tension in the Liberty? Again, my son played at Yorktown. Always, Coach Carlos and the coach over at Washington Liberty. I'm blanking on his name. What's the coach at Washington Liberty? Jimmy, Coach Jimmy. We always have Coach Bo. There's a lot of big personalities in the Liberty. How would you characterize the relationship between coaches in the Liberty?
I've got great relationships with some, and others are purely competitive.
Right. Do you enjoy that, or do you look at that as a negative?
Nah, I love it. I think if you really want to win, I think that's how you should be.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how competitive the coaches are, the kids are, because the kids all know each other from club,
Yeah.
and generally the kids get along off the field really well, even if they go at it on the field. After the games, they get along really well on the soccer field. I think they do a really good job of separating it. So you take over the team. Aram's coming back, Calf's coming back, Gage is coming back. You had a team in 2023 that really dominated most of the games you played. You didn't have a lot of close games. And Herndon was a team that kind of surprised people at first, but it was obvious once people saw them, this was a very talented team. And then, McLean ended up being kind of the bogey team for you guys last year. But this year, your team played in a lot more close games. Things weren't easy. Even the opening game against Westfield, turns out Westfield was a very good team. But at the time, I don't think people knew how good Westfield was. But that kind of characterized your season this year in 2024. The games were close.
Yeah.
Do you think in some ways that was better for you, that you guys had so many close games that when you got in the postseason, you guys were able to make so many big plays when you had to?
For sure. I think by the time we'd reached playoffs, we'd experienced pretty much every possible scenario, being up 2-0, having a team come back and tie us, being up 3-0 and having to kill a game off, having a tie game 1-1 and having to win it in the last minute. Pretty much every one of those scenarios we had gone through. So going into the playoff games, we knew however it went that we were going to find a way to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it amazing how well you guys were able to execute in the late part of the game this year. But going back to 2023, comparing the two teams, how would you characterize the way that their style of play, and which team do you think had better players?
I can't say that. I can't say which team had better players. I think this team this year was more connected as a unit. The guys were closer together. This is something I mentioned to the guys, is I can see the difference when I come out to practice. The year before, there'd be 3 or 4 different groups of guys talking. This year, everybody's huddled around one group, talking as a whole, and something as small and that can indicate how close the group is. And I think that was a big factor. How much too that they competed in training this year. The training environment was much more competitive. Part of that we facilitated on purpose, and part of that the kids just brought as a whole. That competitive fire in them, they brought to practice. They did not want to lose to their friends. And we had 6 a.m. practices all year this year, just because of how last year went. We felt that later in the season we got too comfortable, right? And we figured that if you're getting up at 6 a.m. even after winning the game to go practice, there's no way you can get comfortable.
Well, one thing I'll say about your team, you guys, I know a lot of the boys really well. I like them a lot. I feel like I'm friends with several of the kids, of the players. They're just good kids. But your team is a little bit of a lightning rod in that in 2023 you had Gage, who loves to
Mhm.
stir up the pot, and I'm good friends with his dad Mike, and they're so much fun to be around because they make it so much fun. This year you had Dante, who won a state championship with
Yeah.
Langley, great player, love the kid, just a ferocious competitor. But both these kids get the opposing fans riled up. Do you enjoy that kind of target on your back?
Me personally, I do. And I don't mind seeing it from the kids either. If they can handle it and they're doing it, then they're built for it in a way. Those kind of players, that pressure doesn't get to them. It makes them bigger. It makes them bigger on the field.
Exactly.
So, and I think we saw from the team this year too. They really ate up those kind of environments. The away game at Westfield, the away games at Herndon, even that final with all the Cosby fans there, it didn't phase the kids one bit. They were so used to it, and they really embraced that kind of pressure.
Yeah. Well, let's go back quickly to 2023. You had a hard time with Herndon, but you beat everybody else, I believe, just about. But you ended up losing to Centerville. I was there that day. Unbelievable game. But you had some injuries. I remember
Mhm.
that because Calf, the kid that I watched play, he played against my son. He's been around for so long. He was playing in the back line that day. I
Yeah.
believe Jalen was out that day. I know Graham. I'm not even sure Graham played that year, but I know you had a
I believe
lot of
so.
injuries.
Yeah.
Do you feel if your team was full strength that year that you could have made a deeper run into the state playoffs?
Yeah, you could say that, and it's always nice to think that, but at that point in the season, I think every team is dealing with some kind of injury.
Yeah,
Somebody's injured, can't play that game, so I try not to even think about that.
right. So
But
when
I do want to highlight Calf playing center midfield in that game. He played as a number 6 next to Luke. He was fantastic, man. Calf can play. I've seen him play every position on the field and at the same level of quality. Calf's a special player.
Yeah, he had a tremendous basketball season this year. I don't think I'll ever. I, Soccer was great. I don't think I ever forget his basketball season either. So he made the most of his senior year of that
Yeah.
kid. So
Couple of game winners in basketball, and then even for soccer, a couple of last second goals.
unbelievable. I mean, he will be a player that's missed. He's part of the culture of the Liberty. He's a player, and I'm big into the basketball and soccer and also the football a little bit. So we will definitely miss Calf and all the kids that are graduating. So, anyways, so going into this year, I messaged a little bit with Joe, and I know Joe was very he's and also Calf. I interviewed Calf, but I know they were a little tempered. They didn't want to look too far ahead. They were trying to measure the expectations going into the season. What were your expectations going into this year? I know you had Liam Connolly join the lineup. You had Will Saxon, Mike Molina, Titus Powell come in. I think Graham was back,
Yeah.
Ada, and then of course Luke, Calf, and Joe. So you did have a really strong and Sebi in the goal, and he's replacing your goalie. What was the guy who has a child now?
I
Um,
Dylan, prestige.
yeah, Dylan, good kid.
A great
Anyway,
goal.
so you have a talented team, but you have some kids who hadn't played a lot for you on the high school level. What were your expectations coming into this season?
I want to highlight one more player because
Sure.
Graham didn't start playing with us until really the playoffs. We managed his injury during the season. During the regular season, Rafa Cabral he started in the center midfield where Graham was playing now, and he did a great job as well all season
Yeah.
long.
Did Rafa get hurt or did he?
He took a back seat for Graham in the playoffs, but
Okay.
he started in the state final at right wing back,
Yeah, he
and
did. He made
one
a
of the
big
best.
he made a big play for you back there, coach.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Because I'd forgotten Rafa played. I recognized him, but I didn't
Mhm.
know what's that kid playing in the back. But he was a midfielder. Him and Armand got a lot of playing time for you during the regular season because you have quality. But anyway, going into the season, what were your expectations? And were you shocked, like Joe was when you guys tied Westfield right out of the blocks?
Shocked? No. I knew coming in about that Westfield team. I knew that team was going to be good.
Hmm.
I figured that they would, outside of Herndon, probably be our toughest regular season game.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any. I mean, the expectation for us really, and this season compared to last season was different on my end. Last season, the expectation was to try and win a state title. This year, the expectation was just every day in training, you show up, you try to get better. You compete with your boy, you make your boy better, and you get better. As long as we do that every day, and each game we try to do something better than the last one, then we're going to end up climbing those heights. And the expectation was just to win every game we play.
Yeah. Well, Coach, it's interesting about your team this year, though. I never felt during the regular season you really got into a rhythm. A lot of the games I went to, you found a way to win, but I didn't feel like it was easy. I mean, even the Marshall game in the regional quarters, you guys took a last-second goal to beat a team that you're much better than. I felt during the year you never got into a rhythm, and I didn't really feel like until the postseason and maybe the regional semis when your team finally started clicking in and you could really see. Maybe it's also Graham coming back off injury made a big difference. But did I read that right in that you did enough to win, but it wasn't like clicking, and the wins weren't coming easily to you, even though the record was really good.
Yeah. Now the scoreline made those games seem kind of tougher than they were, especially, I mean, towards the end, some of those games got tough, but a number of those 3-2 and 2-1 games, we were leading either 2-0 or 3-0 at one point. And the biggest trouble we had in the regular season was killing those games off.
Right.
Once we had a good lead, to kill that game and get that last goal to really take the other team's enthusiasm out of them. So we'd concede one and then maybe a second one, and then it would become a close game in the end. We'd have to fight to get the result those last few minutes. But that's something next year we're really working to improve.
So, excuse me. So you felt like the kids were playing well. There was just some things you had to tweak to.
I don't think there was a game all season where the other team had the ball more than we did.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's go to the postseason. I mean, you had a really heartbreaking loss to Herndon during the regular season when you're man up, and I felt like once you went a man up, you started playing poorly. You stopped. You guys stopped really playing hard. But that being said, you guys played a tremendous game against him in the district final. Lost kind of unfortunately, but both teams advanced. It didn't kill you. As I said before, you got by. A really tough. Marshall played tough that game, and then you get to the.
They came with a lot of energy that game.
They did, yeah, and they had.
I want to highlight their midfield. I think his name's Barry. He was a sophomore. I think he was wearing number 6 that day. Marshall, their center midfielder. He's going to be a good player, man. He brought so much energy that day.
He's a very slick player. You're exactly right. And then you had a tough Herndon game. Carlos Calderon hit a shot from almost 40 yards. That game was closer than it had to be as well. So you guys are plugging along, and then you get to the Herndon game, and I think it's probably the biggest game of the year because you got the monkey off your back. But not only that, you got a regional title. Tell us about the Herndon win.
That was for us. The big thing going into that second one, that first time around the district final, we felt that we placed too much importance on beating that particular opponent, trying to get past Herndon, trying to get over that Herndon hump. And then I think it showed when we went a man up, we started to rush our attacks. We started kicking the ball along rather than building our play when the opponent has less players to cover the space. And that last time, the regional final, just felt like everything clicked. The way we were riding from that Westfield match, coming through that game and then getting to that Herndon final. We made a couple adjustments as well, but really just the belief that we were here to win a regional title and not try and beat Herndon.
Yeah.
And then at the end there, Luke, what a play by Luke in that last moment.
Yeah. Seems like it's hard to find space in those kind of shots, and somehow it was perfectly placed. I did forget the Westfield penalty shootout, which was an amazing moment. You guys were in control of that penalty shootout from the beginning, and my son Chandler was at the game, and I remember before the shootout, I gave Westfield the advantage because I found over time the tall goalie generally is an advantage in the penalty shootout. But it was apparent from the very first shot that you guys were in complete control of the penalty shootout. What was your strategy in penalties?
Strategy going into penalties, I prefer just to go with the guys that feel the most confident at the time. The guys that are in the moment that are feeling it, right? So we talked beforehand, and for me, the message before a penalty shootout is just don't worry about anything. Don't worry about winning, losing, whatever happens. Just make that ball hit that net, however you want to do it. If you want to hit it with power, you have any doubt in your mind, just crank it down the middle, right? And we had fun. That you could tell from the way the group was out there. They were confident. They were feeling good. They knew they were going to win it in penalties.
Yeah.
And that kind of belief, confidence, I think in penalties, anybody can all those guys on the field there can hit that ball in from that distance, right? What is it in that moment that makes a difference? The way they're thinking, the way they're feeling, the pressure off their back, not thinking about winning or losing.
It was a very dominant display.
Yeah.
And I felt you guys wanted it so much. And you went out there and you got it. It was a great moment for you. So, and then again, it led to the Herndon win and a matchup with Woodson in the state quarterfinals. I had seen Woodson against Lewis in the Occoquan region final. They have two quality attackers. They have Alex Garrison, left wing, was really good. I mean, I would think other than Joe, maybe the best attacking player in the area this year.
We studied quite a bit going into that game.
Yes. And then they had a midfielder, freezing on his name, Jack Garwood, another good player. Tell us about the Woodson game. I wasn't able to see that game.
The Woodson game was another one of those games where I think we were up 3-0 with about 20 or 30 minutes left. We were playing comfortably. Woodson really didn't have the ball at all. We were able to win it off them every time they tried to build. And then towards the end, we slipped up on. We knew how dangerous. I think Alex Garrison was his name.
Yeah, Alex Garrison.
We knew how dangerous he could be on that side. And the one time that we got on the wrong side of the ball when he has it, he was able to get past and get a shot off. So he scored one, and then I think we gave away a penalty at the end of that one. So the score ended up 3-2. But it was another one of those games where we were pretty comfortable the whole time.
Yeah. Well, the next game is a big game because if you win the semifinals, you automatically qualify for state. Even if Herndon would have beaten you in the regional final, you would qualify for state. And I mean for the final. And that's against Garfield, I believe, right, Coach?
Yeah, against Garfield.
So you traveled to Garfield, and Garfield was a very fast team. I was very impressed with them. They were very deep. I mean, they put kids in that had different jerseys than the starters. So I think they were like JV kids. And no matter who they put in the game, they were all good, quick little players. And you guys were able to eke out a win against Garfield. Tell us about that win.
No, they were a good team. They were technical. They fought hard. And, a lot of my players after the game, they had scratch marks all over them. It was that type of game, that type of opponent.
Oh, it was a very physical game?
Yeah, very physical, very scrappy. And, we were able to get through. Dante stepped up huge in that game. Every game this year, he's been a game changer, an important player on defense. But, man, there's been some times he's really stepped up and given us the goals that we needed as a team, too. He got one off of a header there, and then he got one off of a deflected shot in the box.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about some of the goals he's had too, man, because he's stepped up in some really big moments. That Herndon game, the regional final we were just talking about, we were down 2-1 in the second half. And Dante stepped up over, I think, the center backs that they had. There were two center backs that jumped up. He got up above both of them and put that ball in the back of the net. Yeah. And right after he had given up a penalty on the other end against O2. Like that takes so much character. That takes so much mentality and strength to be able to do that. Man, I had no doubt in my mind. If the ball's coming to him in the air, in the box, he's going to score.
Well, he made so many big plays game after game. I mean, his postseason was unreal. I mean, again, I made him a player of the year in the area because I think Joe has a great argument for player of the year because he had so many important goals. But I felt like Dante and Titus Powell was a really quality center back. Liam Connolly had a really great year, and Will Saxon, all region player as well. So the whole back line was very tough. But Dante, I mean, he just almost refuses to lose sometimes. He even made a penalty in that one game against Westfield. He made his penalty shot. He's just unreal. He did the same thing for Langley as a sophomore. He's
played striker for us. He scored some big goals for us. I think the game against Fairfax, we put him as striker at halftime. In the second half, he goes out, has 2 goals and 2 assists. Yeah,
he's just a quality player. But you survive Garfield. And speaking of Dante, he was a little lucky not to have a red card. That dude could have had 3 red cards against Garfield. Dante kept fouling, and somehow he was able to survive. And it was good because that team was so fast. I don't know how you could have beaten Garfield a man down. That was a very fast team.
Yeah.
But you survive that team, and then you get Cosby in the final. Now, Cosby had and this is a team. They talk a lot of junk, fast team, kind of a fierce team. They got what four Division One or five Division One players, and the rest Division Three. They all play for the same club team. I interviewed the coach yesterday. Um, what did you think about Cosby going in? And what was the game plan going in?
Going in, of course, we do a lot of film study on the opponents, especially once we get to the playoffs. Cosby, for some reason, they didn't have all their film was taken down off of VHSL.
For some reason.
For some reason. So, we did a bit of research, and it was maybe 2 or 3 a.m. the night before the final. We found another streaming service that they had uploaded a bunch of their stuff to. So we got a subscription, watched their film, and had a rough game plan going in, but we didn't know enough about them to really understand what they were going to do until the water break. I think the first 20 minutes of that game, we sat back a bit more. We weren't as aggressive. Once we got a feel for what they were doing, though, it wasn't anything we hadn't seen before. And I think after the first water break, we really started to play. Their biggest advantage, the toughest thing about them, was most teams have got one or two guys that have like a different speed, that are different speed than the rest of the guys on the field. That Cosby team had 4 or 5 of them.
They were really fast, physical. The midfielder was player of the year in the state.
Yeah.
Ryan Laundry, just a quality team. But unlike Herndon, they come out, balls to the wall, on fire, and they put a lot of pressure on you. You guys were able to withstand that, and they didn't score. The game kind of went into a lull. They eventually got a goal, which you guys equalized. Herndon let 2 goals go. The first one was on a throw in. The ball just kind of, the wind carried it kind of into the net. And, so they were down 2-0. I think in the second half, they played well, but they just couldn't climb back into the game. I think you guys did a good job of not letting that happen to you. And I think Herndon could have done that to them, but they got down. And when you get down, chase a little bit, and then it just gets tough. And then there was a time against you guys right before halftime. They slowed the tempo down. And I knew once that happened, they stopped pressing a little bit, and they stopped being in a hurry. And I knew you were in good shape then, because I knew once the game slowed down, you guys would get a set piece or two, and you guys would get a chance to get a goal, which is exactly what happened. So I felt like the tempo favored you guys.
Yeah, and I mean our center backs too did a great job. Titus, Dante, and Liam of killing that pressure. There was a couple when they started to sit back. There were a couple of times when they tried to step out. Then once you have a half the field cut off, they looked to step out and put a little pressure on the guys. And they just stepped out. They feinted long, played it short, brought back around, and they were able to kill that pressure. When they wanted to go, they were able to kind of defuse that enthusiasm. And then the wingbacks too were huge that game. Saxon and Rafa, especially as the game went on, their ability to continue to get on the ball and make the right decision kept them from being able to trap us on the sidelines.
Coach, were your players tired? No. Cosby had played more players on Friday. They played 5 off the bench, I believe, maybe 6, and they played them maybe at least 5 or 6 minutes each per half. So they got some time with the starters on the bench. Your kids, I think Armand came in, I think, but you guys a lot of your kids played all whatever it is, 85 minutes with the stop clock and stuff. Both games. Were your kids tired in the second game?
They were. I mean, they were definitely feeling it. I think both teams were, though. I could see the other guys. Some of the players on the other team were asking to come off for subs. So I think it was both sides. But at that point, it's going to be mentality. Everyone's going to be tired. Everyone's going to be sore. And I would have liked to get a few more guys some rest on against Garfield, but the way the game was going, there really wasn't much opportunity to.
Yeah. So when we go into extra time. And there's 4 separate extra time periods. And there was no score in the first 2 rounds, which is not a golden goal. But there wasn't any great opportunities either. The game it looked like it was heading for penalties. Yeah. And in my mind, I felt like you had the advantage in penalties because you guys had been in a lot of close games. I thought you guys would handle penalties better just because the pressure was going to be on them. Every game they won almost every game 5 or 6-0. I think the score was 90-7. The goals for and against for the year. So I felt like if they got to penalties, you guys were in really good shape. How did you feel? Did you feel like the game was heading to penalties?
Yeah, the overall feeling from me and from really all the players on the sideline was just keep going. We've got this game. We're gonna get this win. And I don't know if you remember this play. It was, I think it was either the first extra time or the end of regulation when their keeper comes out. Joe comes out for it too. Their keeper bobbles the ball and Kath heads it over top of him. And they called it back for undercutting on Joe, which
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the film. It didn't really make sense in my eyes, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. What it is. So they
Yeah,
were
I
there.
was right. I was sitting over there at the. I
Yeah,
didn't look at the replay at the time. I thought it was a good call, but I didn't. It's a bang bang play. That would take film. I have to check. I have to check that out. But I know one call you're going to want to talk about is the golden goal. And I've interviewed Dennis Hayes, VCU commit, about it, and they were pretty humble about the play. They did kind of rush it, even though I know Evan Gaines said that they didn't feel like there was more time than normal, but they
yeah,
were cognizant and but you guys were still trying to get your wall together, and
yeah,
they knew that. Uh,
yeah.
how did you view it? Did you think that the penalty was taken too quickly?
From their perspective, they did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? If you see it disorganized, you see the ref talking to him, and then he blows the whistle. You take that opportunity. You don't think twice about it. For me, the issue that I had on that play was the referee giving instruction to the wall, and then telling them to readjust their positioning, and then not giving them the time to adjust their position.
Mm.
Right? It's not a really written rule because I have looked into it, but throughout all my years of watching and playing soccer, I don't know if I've ever seen the referee walk up to a wall, tell them to adjust, and then immediately blow the whistle after. So that was maybe it was a cultural thing, but maybe that's just something I haven't seen before.
I have to say, when I watched it live, I felt like it was taken fast. That was my reaction. And I was sitting right there. That was my reaction, my initial reaction. Um, I've shared that video with lots of officials, and
Yeah,
not one of them has told me that the ref did anything wrong. They tend to close ranks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that it is interesting, but it was my impression that it was taken fast. That was my initial impression when I was watching the game.
In the sense,
Um,
in the sense of the rules too, there wasn't any rules broken. It was still by the book, just
yeah,
not so it's a courtesy that's usually given, I think.
exactly. That's a good way to put it. So anyway, look, Cosby is the state champ. What was the feeling like when you've been that close to a state championship? You can almost feel it. Has it been hard to get over that, or is it more a feeling of satisfaction that you beat Herndon, you won the region,
Yeah,
you got to a final against one of the best high school teams that I've seen. I've only
yeah.
been following it closely for the last 5 years, but that's one of the best high school teams that I've seen. Cosby.
And
What
huge
was your
respect to huge
what's that?
respect to Cosby. Huge respect to Cosby because they were a worthy opponent. That was a game worthy of a state final.
Yeah, they were great, great, great team. But how did you feel about the loss? Were you able to get over it? Is it? I think you'll remember that loss for the rest of your life, frankly. But that's just the way
Yeah,
sports are. The ones
yeah.
that get away are the ones you kind of remember. But how did you deal with it? How did the kids deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, losing is part of the game. I've personally dealt with big losses in soccer and boxing and whatnot. And the losses, they never feel any less. You go that hard, you compete all season long, you put everything into it, it's going to feel that way. And the players felt it as well, right? The bus ride back, I think the first hour, nobody said a word. And we got some food, the mood lightened up a little bit, but that's how I expect the team to feel too. If you really care and you really want this as bad as these kids do, then it's gonna feel bad if you lose. It's gonna feel heavy if you lose, but the wins too feel amazing. Like nobody can ever take those Westfield wins, the Herndon wins, overcoming that Herndon hump or so. That's something they can take for life. It's like no matter how many times the result doesn't go your way, you keep working, keep adjusting, keep improving, and you're gonna get over it. You're gonna get there. And the kids, for the kids to finally get a banner. I know some of those guys, Kath and Joe, had played in I think 3 finals, whether it was a district or regional at their time, and to be able to finally get one in their time there was something really special.
Yeah, it might have been the happiest team I've ever seen in my life after they beat Herndon. So,
Yeah,
Coach, thinking about next year, 2025, I'm already excited. I miss all the kids. I miss being there, and I love the whole season. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Margita. We didn't talk about him. Here's a Villanova commit that's completely committed to his high school teammates and his in the whole high school culture, the whole competition. He's not the kind of guy who wants to be anywhere else. doesn't feel like he's too good for it. What's it like to coach a kid like Joe?
Joe's Joe's a very easy kid to coach, but he's also, he's a fun one. He's always every day having fun with the guys. I'd say this last year to this year, the biggest difference I saw was how much he embraced the leadership role, embraced being one of the captains on the team, and one of the guys that we recognize the guys are going to follow his example because of all his accolades, all his things, going to Villanova. Those are nice, but they're also kind of provide a responsibility, right? Because of all those things, kids are going to look to him. If he's doing something, they're going to look to him as an example. And flawlessly, he handles it. He does everything that I would want the captain to do. And then on the field, he gives everything to win. He wants to score every time he gets the ball. He'll shoot from anywhere and he'll score a lot of them. Yeah. And that's what you want from a striker, a captain, and a player. And he's just a great kid overall too. He's got a younger brother who's going to be coming into the team, and I can see their relationship. And he's just a great kid overall.
Yeah. He's got some wicked crosses too, Coach. But one player we haven't talked about is a player who got an unbelievable goal in the state final, and that's Ada. I'm not going to even try to pronounce his last name because I'll mess it up. But Ada's a player my son played with as well at Joga. Just a tremendous talent. He draws the foul that sets up the set pieces a lot. He's a key integral part of your team. What's it like to coach Ada? And you have to be excited that he's coming back for. He'll be a senior. He's Joe's year, right? Yeah. So what's it like to coach Ada?
Man, Ada's a special kid, and you can kind of tell he's one of Kev's kids. If you know Kev and the kind of players that he develops, you can tell that he's one of the guys that played for him. He's got the technical base, the creativity, and he's not afraid to dribble at anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. He's taking them on 1v1, and he gets called for fouls. People get called for fouls, but he's hardly ever diving. He's actually getting kicked on the majority of those because he's so quick-footed. He's so deceptive on the ball. He's a really special player to play. He's one, I think, from maybe the second scrimmage at McLean when he was a sophomore. We put him on the field with maybe 10 minutes to go and he scores a free kick. Right. And that's a special bit of mentality as well for a sophomore to step up in your first opportunity and hit a perfect free kick over the wall and drop it in.
Yeah.
So
well, Coach, Sebi did a tremendous job in the goal. I think we talked about your whole team. I don't want to leave anybody out. But when you think of Sebi is a junior, he's coming back. He'll be a senior. You're losing Dante, but with Titus, Liam, Will, Mike's, you're still young. Almost your whole team. Calf was a big loss, but you do have some attackers coming back. You have to be excited about next year.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the players we have and about the situation we're going into it with. Having won a lot last year, but also having lost in a state title game where we were this close but didn't get the result. That's going to provide the fuel and the fire we need to work hard over the next year and get to what we didn't get this year. We still need a district title and we still need a state title. So those are the things we're pushing for next year.
Yeah, I live out here. I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
I was going to say one more player I want to really highlight is Will Saxon.
Yeah, Will had a great year.
Yeah, he's a special player, the mentality too. And he started as a sophomore all year long. There were guys on the team telling him he wasn't even going to make the team. He goes ahead, he makes the team, ends up starting every game. I think he was all district honorable mention his first year. And this year comes back and he ends up being first team all district, first team all region, second team all state. And in the playoffs, we moved him from center back. He'd been playing center back and a 3-back. We moved him to a wing back. And man, he really tore up the sidelines. The Westfield game, the Herndon game, the state final game. He's a really special player. And he's one I think we might even see a college move for.
Yeah, definitely. He's indeed a McLean player. I would describe your players. I mean, you do have some really technical kids, but you have some great athletes, great builds on them, physical players. Will is definitely in that mold, and he doesn't back down to anyone. So it's great. I live out here in Lansdowne now, right next to Riverside, and they're really good. I'm hoping you guys. I told Joe I'm trying to talk you guys into scrimmage in Riverside. I'd love to see you guys. They're really good in the Class 5. I'd love to see you guys play them. But Coach, I'm looking forward to next year already. I wish you best of luck getting your junior college roster filled out. And again, I know you're looking for kids probably as of next month, probably like the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
really the next 2 or 3 weeks is when I gotta make decisions and start the process of bringing guys up. So if anybody wants to reach out, my phone number is 703-336-2115. And again, if you've played at the varsity level in Northern Virginia, I want to talk to you and we can make something happen.
absolutely, yeah. So I know so many kids that just want to keep playing and keep that dream alive. So, well, anyway, Coach, thanks for doing this. Best of luck up there, and let us know how you're doing in Scranton,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. I know it's a nice hard scrabble part of the country, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed all year. I think I went to more McLean games than any other team. I think I saw 10 of your games this year.
Wow.
So I enjoy watching your teams play. But thanks for doing this, and thanks for all the hard work you do on behalf of these kids.
No, thank you, Julian. Thank you for the hard work that you do on behalf of high school soccer in Northern Virginia. I mean, you're the first place I go when I want to know a score after a game. I go to your website, see what the scores are,
Oh,
and
well,
just
thank you.
continue to highlight these kids because these kids really are special. These kids are amazing players, amazing humans, and soccer really is just a vehicle for these kids to get to express who they are and express that what's inside of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really get to see that unless somebody highlights them and gives them a platform too. And thank you for putting that out there, Julian. You really provide a lot for them.
Well, you're welcome. Appreciate you saying that. It's joy to me. Ever since my son stopped playing, I've had more free time on my hands. So it's been and I know he played against so many kids. This is the last bunch. So when his senior year, Joe would have been a freshman. So that's right. So he'll know some of those kids he would have played with.
Yeah.
But so I know fewer and fewer of these kids, but I've met a lot because I'm on the sidelines and they're giving me a hard time. There's Nova Soccer Source, so it's been fun. And there's a football group that's coming in and it's going to do what I do for football. So so
Okay.
that's good. You're going to give these kids some exposures as a
Yeah.
positive. So
No, it's
anyway,
amazing.
Coach, well, look, I'll put this up, get this up in the next few hours, and good luck getting kids, and let's keep in touch. Let's talk soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk anytime you want to. Just reach out. I'm here for it.
Okay, sounds good, Coach. Thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
Take care.